So today, we wanted to talk about this book here. Hopefully you can see it in the visual. The Power of a Positive No, How to Say No and Still Get to a Yes. This book is by William Ury. Hopefully I'm saying his name right. And I thought it would be important for us to kind of talk about this book on the podcast. This is a book that Charlitta brought to our attention. When we were saying goodbye to 2023, you said over the break that you were going to read this book. And I was like, oh. And you're like, yeah, I got to delve into this book. This book was recommended to me, so I'm going to read it. And I was like, well, I think I want to read it too. So what made you pick up this book and read it?
So every year, I am a word of the year kind of girl.
Me too.
And so I map it with like my vision board. And so, coming from the scripture, write the vision, make it plain. I really try to start the year with the intention and really think about how I want the year to go, how I want the year to feel. And I usually align my vision board around that.
Okay.
And reinforce it. And so when I started to think about what I needed out of 24, so many people were saying more in 24. And that wasn't really resonating with me. And so then I started to think about, like, what do I want out of 2024? And so 2024 is big for me. I'm turning 40 in a couple of weeks. And so I feel like it's like, everyone's saying you're entering into a new decade and people are like 40s where it's at. I think Oprah said 40s is where it's at. She also said 50s is where it's at. And I think every decade is like where it's at.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to that. And so I started reflecting like, okay, what does this mean for me? I've got my family, we actually just mentioned that. Like, I know I've got my family of 4 and I feel confident in like who I am. There's been times where I've suffered from like body image issues, imposter syndrome, not feeling good enough, being like a pleaser. So it's like, okay, like how am I going to move into closing out the 30s and entering into the 40s? And so then I'm like, boundaries. That's what it is.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, boundaries kind of sounds kind of rigid, kind of sounds kind of tough. And so do I really want to manifest that? What is it that I want to manifest? And then I'm like, what do I mean when I say boundaries? And I think I've spent so much time, I think first as a mom, you're always saying yes to your kids for safe things and then no for whatever, but you're like, putting them first, whatever they need, whatever they want. If you're married, depending on how your relationship is, you're, putting your spouse sometimes before you, and you shouldn't. Everybody tells you to take care of yourself first, but like you kind of default to not doing that.
Yep.
And so I'm like, I think it is the fact that I feel like I'm always giving, at work, in the community, at home, and people always come up to you, to me anyway, and they're like, oh, we know you're busy, but, we just need you to help us with this one thing. We just need, you're so good at this, you're so good at that. And you're like depleted. And I'm like, when I say boundaries, I don't want to feel depleted. I don't want to give everything. One, give everything externally to the home and have nothing at home to give.
Yes.
But then, okay, you got boundaries. So maybe you balance what you give out, but you still deplete yourself with the stuff at the house, and then you have nothing for yourself. And so then I'm like, no, that's what the word is.
Yep.
But no sounds hard too.
It does.
Right? Yep. And so it's like, okay, I don't want to come from a place of no. What if there's an amazing opportunity that comes up? Like, I don't want to live the whole year just saying no to everything.
Yep.
And so this book, The Power of a Positive No, was recommended, and that's what got me intrigued. It's like, is there a way to say no positively? How do you change that? Now, just to kind of quickly put a pin into the word, my word of the year is actually heart.
Okay.
And it stands on the scripture, above all else, guard your heart. And my heart, first and foremost, is my home. And so as I apply this book, it is, how do I make sure that I'm not saying yes to something that goes against my heart? And so I'm centering all of my decision-making with my heart in mind that I'm guarding. So
I love that. Awesome.